Hello, everybody. My goodness, look at this room. Y'all look good. This is, I'm told, the largest gathering we've ever had for an Equality Florida Broward Gala. So congratulations for being part of that. You know what, I was thinking about this. I was thinking 2 years ago when we were celebrating marriage equality, the big message that I wanted to deliver was, it's fantastic, let's celebrate, but you know what? Let's also understand that there's going to be a backlash, that the road ahead of us is going to be a lot tougher than the road behind us, and the road behind us has been pretty tough. And then last year, when we were all gathered, we discovered just how prophetic those words were. We saw a moment in our country that caused a lot of us to really wonder just what the progress we made, whether it would hold up to the onslaught. And I think that even those who had the most generous spin on what a Donald Trump presidency might mean to the LGBT community, I think have been disabused of any notion as we stand here today and we see who he has put in place, the constant barrage of attacks, whether it is rescinding transgender protections, trying to kick transgender people out of the military, installing the most homophobic leadership that we've seen in decades in public life. I don't think there's anybody who has any illusions about the moment that we stand in. And yet tonight, there's undeniably in me, and I take from all of the conversations I've had tonight, this spark of hope. And it showed up in the form of a transgender woman beating the architect of an anti-trans bill. It showed up in races where people had embraced the worst aspects of the Trump campaign: anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, anti-LGBT, all of the hateful scapegoating. The people who embraced that lost. And more than that, the people who refused to condemn it also lost. We saw that here in Florida. We saw in Florida a race for mayor in St. Petersburg that all of the pundits had written off as an absolute mortal lock for a prior mayor, a former mayor, who was one of the most anti-LGBT mayors in the state. He was coming back. He was expected not only to win, but win in the primary, which means win so many votes that there's no need to take it to the general election. And instead of winning that night, because of our community, because of our investment, he lost by 70 votes. And in the general, we were able to deliver the margin of victory of 2,184 votes. That is the moment, that is the thing that is creating in us a sense of hope. The hope comes from the fact that we are successfully, in many, many cases, resisting the worst of our fears. We have seen that when we stand together, when we link arms with other communities that are under attack, we've been able to push back in incredible and important ways. And you should nurture that candle, that flame of hope that you're feeling tonight. And I can tell you can feel it, because I remember what last year looked and felt like when we were all gathered in the immediate aftermath of the election. And I can tell that the people in this room understand what it means and how important it is to invest deeply in this work right now. That's why there are more people here tonight than in any other gala prior. But hope without action is pointless. We have gotten here because we have scrapped like junkyard dogs every single day since that November election a year ago. We are here because we understand that the people who spout this anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic, anti-LGBT rhetoric are tied together, and we have to stand together against it. We understand that. So hope has to be paired with action. So let me tell you the opportunity. Because, you know, Listen, there are plenty of reasons for fear and despair. And I remember reading a recent tweet where I think the President of the United States called the President of a rogue nation with nuclear weapons short and fat. Does anybody see this one? All right, so, I mean, it's terrifying. It's terrifying that my 6-year-old would be ashamed of himself if he had said that, let alone written it. But I think the best response to it was somebody who said, this tweet is so childish that Roy Moore wishes he could date it. So we're living in this moment. We're living in this moment. So there's a lot of reason for anxiety. But here's what gives me hope. And it's our community. Remember those years where year after year after year we lost on marriage? 38 states, one right after the other. It was demoralizing, it was tough, but instead of backing down, what we did was we became more engaged at the grassroots level. We started telling our stories. We started talking about this in new ways. We started having those awkward conversations with Aunt Helen, who we never, thought. All of those things happened, and because we talked about love, because we talked about commitment, because we talked about our lives in ways that people could understand, not drained of all of its passion and all of its reality and sounding like a contract that we were signing, we changed hearts and minds. And it made a difference. And I think that right now what our country is going through is the reason that Trump occupies the space he occupies is that too many people thought we were on this inevitable path forward, that it was only a matter of how fast we would get there, and did not take seriously what a backlash means. And we're living in a country at a moment in time where, white supremacists don't wear hoods when they march. We are living in a time where the emboldened hatred towards our community, towards people of color, towards immigrants, towards people who aren't part of the dominant religious identity in our country, open season has been declared. And so on the one hand, it is terrifying to see hate crimes increase 300%, but on the other hand, the reality is we've been living with that danger and we've been living with that fear. Those of us who mark Transgender Day of Remembrance understand how dangerous it has been. Those of us who put our money and our time and our energy into responding to the massacre at Pulse have understood how dangerous it has been. And that was before Donald Trump became President of the United States. I'm going to use quotes until we find out what happened with Russia. But anyway, you get my point. So I want to say this. I also want to say this. I have retweeted and followed more Republicans in this last year than ever before. I mean that because there are people who are fighting back within the Republican Party to pull it away from the people who have embraced racism, who are embracing somebody who, trolled for dates with a 14-year-old at a custody hearing. There are people who are pushing back, and we need to embrace and encourage that kind of standing up on these principles. So I want to leave you with this. Right now, we should feel hope, but we have to take action. And the fact that you are here, the fact that you are supporting the work of Equality Florida tells me that you already understand that. And all of us know people who are either still in fear or are hopeful but aren't taking action. And our task over the next year, before we get back together, there's going to be an election that remakes the landscape of our state. And I mean this quite sincerely. There's going to be a governor's race. There is going to be a race for the Senate. And understand that the things that are passing by 1 and 2 votes. Bill Nelson will face a guy named Rick Scott for the governor's for the Senate. And we're going to have the opportunity to be the deciders in that race. We're going to have the opportunity to decide who the next governor of the state of Florida is. Every single cabinet position is up for grabs. The Senate in the state of Florida is divided by a small margin. There are 8 seats that could swing our way with supportive pro-LGBT elected officials, and we're going to get a chance to make that decision together. And there's something that happens every 20 years. It's called the Constitutional Review Commission. And it sounds incredibly boring, but it actually gets to put any amendments that it decides up for a vote, and we know that they are coming for us. The Constitutional Review Commission will produce at least one and potentially two or more constitutional amendments that will affect our daily lives. There has never been a more important, I'm 52, and there's never been a more important, I know I look good, there's never been a more important election in the state of Florida than the one we'll face next year. So we got to lean in. We have to turn hope into action. And one of the ways that we've done that is we have dramatically increased our resources, not just in fighting discrimination, but in changing the culture, in changing the tenor in our state. And that investment has really shown up in Broward County. We have, in Wilton Manors, opened our biggest office in the state of Florida, right here in Broward County. And we had to because our flagship programs are now being run right here out of Broward County. So in addition to the work that we've been doing at the state level in Tallahassee, and I just remember, since it's our 20th anniversary, I remember Stratton and I would travel up and down the state of Florida, and we'd meet with people and we'd tell them the importance of being in Tallahassee, that we needed to be there. We needed all of these candidates that look us in the eye and ask us for money and ask us for a vote. We had to go to Tallahassee and hold them accountable. And I remember in one meeting, after we gave this really impassioned pitch for why there had to be a statewide organization, the person we were talking to said, now this Tallahassee place, now is that in Florida? So I tell you that because of the investment of so many people in this room. We have had a presence in Tallahassee from the very beginning. We have blocked every anti-LGBT piece of legislation that has come forward. And we are poised right now to make a breakthrough in the South. We have the votes, if we can get it to the floor, to pass a statewide non-discrimination bill in the state of Florida. And it's because of this kind of work. But when we first started, the very first work that we took on was safe schools. And it wasn't because we wanted to, it was because those were the phone calls we were getting from students, from parents, about bullying in schools. Well, we've returned to our roots, and we're so thrilled that we have Dee Palazzo leading our Safe and Healthy Schools program. And I will tell you, that program that has already trained over 3,000 principals, vice principals, and school leaders across the state, this program that we thought would maybe play in 4 school districts is now in more than half of the school districts in the state of Florida. This program is where we uproot the anti-LGBT bias before it becomes a hate crime, before it becomes a discriminatory boss, before it becomes the violence that targets us, before it becomes a young person kicked out of their home by the people who should protect them the most. Thank you so much, Dee, for that incredible work that you're doing. We also, in our early days, understood that we had to be a voice that spoke up around AIDS and HIV. And in this moment, in the state of Florida, when Florida leads the nation in new transmissions, at a time when we have medication available that can provide people the same longevity and life as somebody who is not infected, it is a disgrace that our state has that distinction. And we know that it is rooted in stigma and discrimination. And so one of the things that we have invested in is hiring Alejandro Acosta. Where are you, Alejandro? I think there he is, back there, to run our AIDS and HIV work, to help undo that stigma, and most importantly, make sure the laws of the state of Florida don't reinforce that stigma. And Alejandro is based right here in Broward County. And then finally, one of the most important programs that we launched, one of the programs that has absolutely been transformational, is when we said to the business community, you get awards at the national level, you get ranked by the Human Rights Campaign, but you have to show up in the state of Florida as champions of LGBT equality. And you've got to do it for yourselves because it's going to give you a competitive advantage, but you also have to do it for us as the consumers, as the community that you actually live in. And so we launched something called Equality Means Business. And it absolutely has been the engine for so many of our victories at the local level. And we are so thrilled that that Equality Means Business which started off as a place where we recognized the biggest companies in the state of Florida, the Tech Datas and Wells Fargo's and the folks I'm about to mention to you in a moment when I hand them an award, the biggest companies in our state. We said, you've got to be standing up with us. And when you do that, we're going to shine the spotlight on you, and it's going to draw other businesses. And so Equality Means Business has become the most replicated program that we do with other states. There are at least 8 other states that have taken Equality Means Business and adopted it because it is so effective in changing the political climate, and the voice of the business community has been so powerful. What we've added to that is something called Open Doors. And I want to say this about the election. The majority of people have not stood with the message of the Trump campaign or its administration. And my commitment is I will not spend $1, not even a penny, in a business that actively opposes my existence, my family, and my child. And we shouldn't give them a single penny. So we launched something called Open Doors Florida, which allows not only big businesses but small businesses to be part of a searchable database. So if you come visit me in St. Petersburg and you say, hey, what restaurant am I going to? On your smartphone, it'll take you to restaurants that have clear policies that respect our humanity and our dignity and have made clear that they stand with us. That's where you spend your money. So listen, I get to give out the first award tonight. I'm about to do it, and it is to a business who has been there from the very beginning. But before I do that, I just want to say this. I love our galas because Facebook and Twitter are great messengers. It's great to get our point out. But in a moment like this, where we are under attack, there's nothing that substitutes from being able to hug and spend time with and toast all of you, to be together. We need each other. We need to look out for each other. And every year when we come to these galas, we get to do that. And we need each other more than ever before. I believe that we are going to prevail. I believe that the things that we learned in the marriage fight are going to sustain us through what lies ahead. But we're supposed to look out for each other. And every time we get together for this gala, I'm reminded that not only are we supposed to look out for each other, but we do. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that. So, thank you. That surprise award's got me all in my feelings. So it's my honor to provide tonight, to call up to the stage our first honorees this evening. And I want you to know that when we launched Equality Means Business, businesses, when we first approached them, said they weren't sure they wanted to be right out front on an LGBT issue. They weren't sure whether that was the right business move, and some of them were reluctant. And then we found a few heroes that stepped forward. And eventually, because those heroes stepped forward, it became easier to get the next group and the next group. And now 80 major companies in the state of Florida stand with us as part of Equality Means Business. And one of those early supporters has been tonight's honorees. They have also been for half a decade our statewide lead sponsors, our presenting sponsors, all across the state of Florida. Please join me in welcoming to the stage PNC Bank. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good job.
All right. So, and I'm going to read this without my glasses, so that's right. I like to be able to tell people we just turned 20. All right. Equality Florida's 2017 Florida Business for Equality Award presented to PNC for unparalleled support of Equality Florida and unwavering commitment to LGBT equality in the workplace and the community. All of us at Equality Florida, we thank you.